Subscribe to Teckoh on YouTube or you will forever be a bot at Fortnite.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be showing you some tips and tricks that'll help you win more box fights in Fortnite. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to go drop a like on it and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos just like this. It seriously helps me way more than you think it does. But with that said, I'm not going to waste any of your time, so let's get straight into it. Alrighty guys, so the first thing I want to cover in this video is some awesome tricks that you can use which utilize cones specifically, as cones are one of the most useful and versatile pieces for box fights. There are two main reasons why using a cone in a box fight can be better than using a ramp, and those are because your opponent is much more exposed with a cone, and because they're unable to safely escape without basically facing away from you. When I think to put a cone in somebody's box, I'll typically push their box, setting myself up on the left side, and then just doing a normal edit, kind of like the Mongrel Classic once I take their wall, sliding a cone in, and then I have an easy right hand peek on the player. On the other hand, if you're pushing their box head on from the side, another option you have is to simply take their wall and perform a peanut butter edit, which is basically just a triangle on the top right, and then slide in a cone right there, and then that basically gives you an easy right hand peek and your opponent's going to be completely exposed. The final technique I want to cover utilizing a cone is one you can use when you're above your opponent. This basically consists of taking their floor and cone just like you usually would and editing through on a right hand peek and then sliding a cone into their box from above. This allows you to work around your edits, and if you peek correctly, it should hopefully result in you winning your fight. Overall, the main reason I like using these cone techniques instead of just using ramps is because, as you know, your opponent is extremely exposed with cones, and they really have no way to edit out safely without getting shot in the back of the head. You gotta think, like, whichever side they try to edit out of, they're gonna be facing away from you and basically giving you a free shot, assuming you have a cone in their box. So with that said, make sure to practice these and try them out next time you're box fighting and see how much they help. The second thing I'd like to cover is a super simple strategy that'll allow you to get good angles, counter your opponent's aggression, and keep yourself protected when you're playing defensive in a box fight. So basically what this technique is simply building a 2x1 box instead of a 1x1. Essentially, this allows you to have more mobility and allows you to set yourself up at a larger variety of angles when your opponent is pushing you. Here's an example of me using a 2x1 in a fight to absolutely dominate my friend. As you can see in that clip, the 2x1 strategy is really simple, and I had way more variety in the techniques and counters that I could pull off in that fight, as opposed to being in a 1x1 where almost any edit I can do exposes me. So ultimately, I'd recommend using the 2x1 strat whenever you're playing defensive in a box fight, especially against good players who may be more difficult to pull off normal techniques against. The third thing that we'll be covering in this video is prefiring, and how you can use prefiring to outplay even some of the best opponents you'll run into. The mistakes most players make with prefiring include doing it at a bad angle, having poor timing, or simply missing their shots. Luckily, all three of these can be easily fixed with this video along with a bit of practice. The first aspect of prefiring that you need to know is what angles you should be prefiring from. The major rule when prefiring is that you need to have a right hand peek. If you don't have a right hand peek, then I wouldn't recommend risking it, otherwise a good opponent will be able to take advantage of your mistake and probably end up killing you. Most really good players, when prefiring, are going to set themselves up diagonal from their opponent's box, and set up this way so their opponent really isn't able to do much. But you can also do it from head on if you're on top of a ramp, from above, or basically any other angle, as long as you're confident that you'll hit your shot and have some sort of advantage with the way you're peeking. Second up is your timing when you prefire. Honestly, your timing is really easy to get down by simply practicing it over and over again. For most PC players, especially those on 144 or 240 FPS, it should be really easy to prefire properly with some practice. Console players and other platforms may struggle a bit more than PC, but it's definitely still possible on low FPS or somewhat high ping. So ultimately, the best way to get your timing down is to simply practice it in creative over and over until you get it down. Finally, third up when it comes to prefiring is simply missing your shots. This can be a result of multiple factors, and apart from simply having bad aim, This should be fixed if you're set up on a good angle and time your shot properly. To time your shot most effectively, try waiting for your opponent to take out their edit map, or simply try to get perfect timing the instant you see them edit. If it's simply an aim issue, then once again that's something you'll mostly improve on with time. And also, having better crosshair placement, basically positioning your crosshair in a good spot where you don't have to move much in order to hit your opponent, should be very helpful as well. Also, I'd like to mention that one great pre-firing technique I like to use is one that you can use on defense. Once again, this is really hard to pull off if you're on console or high ping, but it's definitely possible. Basically, this is done when your opponent is pickaxing your wall, and it simply consists of timing your shot for the instant your wall breaks. If you time it correctly, your shot's going to go off in the short delay between them breaking the wall and the wall being replaced, and you'll be able to simply set up a new box and continue the fight after getting some easy damage off. Make sure to practice the timing of this technique before you try to use it in game, because it does take quite a bit of practice. The next thing I'd like to cover is a simple yet extremely effective move you can do when you're trying to escape a box with your opponent in it. This technique consists of you having a ramp above your opponent and basically editing out to the left side. But instead of doing what most players are going to do and simply editing a window or disengaging from the fight, you'll want to grab the edit on your ramp instead, which should still be above your opponent, and do a half ramp edit just like you see in the background gameplay. From here, you can simply use your triangle peek and the fact that your opponent is basically completely stuck and get some free shots off, if not a free kill. You can also do this technique on the right hand side, but it's a lot more difficult and gives a less optimal peek. If you do edit out to the right side, I'd recommend just doing the classic window peek instead, as that's the easiest way to get an optimal peek in those situations. Another somewhat similar technique you can do against good players is simply edit out the side like you normally would and pretend you're running out and wait for them to break the wall in an attempt to replace it. But instead of going out like most people would, simply edit your ramp backwards as they're trying to take your wall and go for the kill that way. I like this technique a lot because it's not really that mechanical, but it's a really effective trick play, and it really puts your opponent in an awkward situation, which if you hit your shots, they're not going to be able to escape. Oftentimes, this is going to result in a pretty easy kill if you're able to catch them off guard. Anyway, make sure to try out this technique with both variations. I recently started using this technique and it works against even some of the best players. Anyway guys, thank you all so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable from it. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this video and the techniques I showed in it, along with what you'd like to see me post next on the channel. I'm starting to post way more consistently, so be sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you guys don't miss a single video. Finally, if you're interested, feel free to check out my Twitch channel, which I'll be linking in the description. I'm trying to stream a lot more often there, so it would be awesome to see some of you guys in there. It's always a fun time, so be sure to check it out. With that said, I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.